When I decided to go back to school, I knew money would be tight. So I moved into this shared student apartment, a basement set up in an old building that smelled faintly of damp, carpet and instant noodles. We each had our own locked rooms along a narrow hallway, but shared a kitchen and 2 bathrooms. Nobody really talked. We just existed in the same space, sending e-transfers for the Wi-Fi like silent ghosts. That night, I came home exhausted after a long day of classes and work. It was almost 10. My stomach was growling, and all I wanted was something warm and comforting. I pulled out my little frozen pizza, the kind you only buy when you're broke but need a small reward for surviving the week. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I preheated the oven to 375 degrees, set the timer for 25 minutes, and headed back to my room. The old oven made this loud creaking sound every time you opened it, so I could always tell when someone else was using it. About 10 minutes later, I heard that familiar creak, followed by the soft slam of a door closing down the hallway. I walked back out to the kitchen and noticed someone had shoved a huge tray of chicken breasts in with my pizza. Okay, weird. But fine, I thought. Maybe they're just sharing the oven. I didn't think much of it and went back to scrolling on my phone while I waited for the timer to go off. When the alarm finally beeped, I hurried to the kitchen, hungry and ready to eat. But the moment I opened the oven, my heart sank. My pizza, my one little luxury for the night, was almost black around the edges, completely burnt. I looked closer and saw the oven had been cranked up to 425. Someone had changed the temperature without saying a word. I stood there for a moment, staring at that ruined pizza, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. It wasn't just the food, it was the principle. After everything that day and the classes, the work, the exhaustion, this was supposed to be my one good moment. And now it was gone. Still, I forced myself to eat it because, well, when you're broke, you eat what you have. The taste was awful, bitter and dry, just like my mood. But as I chewed, something in me snapped. I wasn't about to let this go. So I waited until I heard my roommate go back into his room. Then I walked over to the oven, still full of his precious chicken, and turned the dial, all the way up to 500 degrees. The oven hummed quietly as the temperature climbed. I stood there for a second, watching the numbers rise, and honestly, it felt kind of satisfying. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was about balance. You burn my dinner, I burn yours. Simple math. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, pretending to scroll through my phone. But really, I was just waiting. The walls in that old basement were thin, so every sound carried down the hallway. A few minutes passed, then 5, then 10, and that's when it started. First came the faint smell, that unmistakable scent of burning meat slowly creeping through the air. Then a few seconds later, I heard it, the sharp, angry beep, beep, beep of the smoke alarm. I smiled. Not a big, evil grin, just that quiet, karma works fast kind of smile. Then came the chaos. His door swung open, and I heard the thud of his feet running toward the kitchen, followed by a string of panicked swearing. The sound of oven mitts being ripped off the counter, metal clanging, and him coughing through the smoke. I stepped out into the hallway, the faint glow of the kitchen light bouncing off the walls, and said in the calmest voice I could manage, "Everything all good, bud?" He froze. I could see him standing there, his face red, waving a towel under the smoke detector, the tray of what used to be chicken now looking like charcoal. He stammered, "Yeah, all good, man. Just overcooked it." "Ah," I said, pretending to be sympathetic. "Happens to the best of us." Then I turned around and walked back to my room. The smell of burnt chicken hung in the air for hours, but I didn't mind. For the first time that day, I actually felt content. My pizza was terrible. My day had been long, but somehow, balance had been restored, and from that night on, nobody in that apartment ever messed with the oven when someone else was using it. Again, after that night, the energy in the apartment shifted. Nobody said anything out loud, but everyone knew something had gone down in the kitchen. The next morning, I walked past my chicken-loving roommate in the hallway. He gave me this awkward little nod, that kind of half-smile people do when they know they messed up but don't want to admit it. Nobody changed the oven temperature, and suddenly the guy who used to leave his dirty dishes in the sink started washing them right away. It was almost peaceful. Funny how a little fire can reset boundaries. Every once in a while, I'd catch the faint burnt smell still lingering in the oven, and it made me smile. It wasn't the smell of revenge, and it was the smell of justice. Sweet, smoky justice. And honestly, looking back, I kind of surprised myself. I'm not usually the petty type. I don't like drama, and I definitely don't like confrontation. But that night taught me something simple. Sometimes, you don't have to yell, argue, or make a scene to get your point across. You just have to match the energy. Sure, maybe it wasn't the most mature thing to do, but it was fair. And in a tiny basement apartment, filled with broke college students and burnt food, fairness was all I needed. That was the last time anyone messed with my dinner. And every time I see someone turn the oven knob now, I just smile. Because I know one thing for sure. You can burn my pizza once, but never twice. In the end, I didn't just get even, I got peace. That little act of revenge wasn't about anger anymore. It was about reminding myself that even quiet people have limits. You can be kind, patient, and easygoing, but cross the line. And well, you might just end up with a tray of chicken that's more coal than dinner. After that, we all learned something about boundaries and about ovens. But mostly, I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or fighting back. It's staying calm, smiling, and letting karma cook, literally. So yeah, maybe I was petty, maybe it was childish. But that night, it felt perfect. And if you ever have a roommate who thinks your food is fair game, remember, you don't need to fight fire with fire. Just turn up the heat. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of petty revenge, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest thing you've ever done?